Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy.
Okay guys, so kind of excuse the vandalized mess in the kitchen, that I had to move the fridge because of the plug socket tamperings and such, right? And lighting wise, it's another one of those things. It's not really just a slight understanding compared to the tomatoes and people's misunderstanding. And this one is coming out quicker concerning manifest direct from the firmament, and why I'd literally mentioned the tomatoes in the fridge versus the tomatoes that were on top of it, the ones that dried up, and you'd see the little seeds, and people not understanding that those seeds are also good for people, that a lot of things that aren't exactly visible to the naked eye are actually very lively in terms of people's understanding, them still being in the refrigerated kind. So it's about green peppers this time, and honestly, because people have issues with presentation, which really doesn't do justice to the actuality. Honestly, on this note, let me just flip the camera quickly. So, because of having to deal with some more intrusions, and these having been in the fridge when the fridge not working because of not having electricity, right? I noticed, oh well, the yellow peppering happened a lot faster with the green peppers. This one turning a little bit reddish. This one, well, kind of at its individual state of maturity, but softer, much softer actually, but starting to do the spottishness. And it's still being, I don't know if you've ever squished a pepper and known that it actually has air that can come out of certain places that become porous here or porous here. Why, speaking of the lemon and potato powered things, and electrolysis being an actual understanding of how you would deal with a situation like this. And honestly, because of people's impatience and the Babylonian harlot fallenness, honestly, it's worse than fallenness at this point in time. Noticing that when I'd immediately taken these out and left them here, because I noticed if I leave them in a actual container situation, that the circulating air of heat rising and cold coming down, it may accelerate some of the softening. So I put them on the outside. The onions, well, they're a bit brown in terms of the outer skin, but they're really awesome. Still on the inside. Very, very stiff and hard and ishy. Yes, it's really serious. Like at this point, when I looked at these parts, noticing, okay, every individual fruit has its own texture and its own manifest ongoing. So as we can see, this one's going a little bit reddish here. If it's going to get to redness and fullness, it would have needed to go through a specific cycle of covering from light, 1, heating and cooling, 2, technically in short, you would call it exposure to moisture. But now the thing that people sometimes don't consider is the kind of exposure to moisture, which is what I realized when looking at this one. I was like, wow, since it's really squishy and it's getting to that stage, how would you harden it? Well, looking at a very, very simple example, and it's patience and time that is at most matter here, and people's inconsiderateness of this. This is why the Babylonian fallenness is so discouragingly disadvantaging to people's understanding of even the things they eat every single day, right? We know that citric acids can also harden things depending on their texture and their complex makeup. We also know that water itself by itself can, alcohols can too. The thing about the green pepper, if you've ever tasted one, obviously you have, is knowing that the flavors you're tasting are very, very specific, even if it's granules, even if it's chopped up and stewed and meats and veggies and such. I'm actually getting somewhere to the USDA prime beef that was actually printed meat, literally. And for some time, a lot of people didn't know, and they would complain about the tastes in terms of, let's say, when I was in 3rd grade in New York at Grafflin Elementary School, right? The pizzas that you get at General, because they have to be so mass produced. The ingredients for them are usually tomato paste, which turns into basil addings of what they called synthetic spices and preservatives then to make the Italian-based flavoring, and then adding pepperoni on top after the dough and such is really the transportation as well is another issue, because things would be half cooked on one end or at some point between the actual final destination of their delivery. So the reason I'm talking about the green pepper here in context of that is some people noticed, for the pizza's sake, what was in the seemingly bland tomato paste would also go very much well in adding between the pepperonis preserving and the actual pastes preserving with the basil leaf and a bunch of other spices, rosemaries, turmerics. Curry is another interesting topic there, because there's so many different kind of curries, and the thing is the crossover between peppers and curries, well, it's one of those things. So what I noticed is, okay, well, in terms of, let's say, electrolysis wise, and I'll just go there for the very quote-unquote tech and distillation process kind of minded people, and when I say minded is just, okay, initially be like, well, it would be nice knowing that at fruits and such kinds, these two ends, because what was noticed about lemons, the same thing about batteries, is an interesting thing, is the literal ends of the points would be where, if you applied that kind of, I don't want to call it a manifest, but I think a better one of a word to use would be cookery. Yeah, we'll just stick with the cookery there for now, just for the display's sake, and I'm just going to keep it short. You'd electrolyze to a degree of even being able to ventilate it in terms of the kind of vapor you would be able to put in, whether it's acidic, whether it's water itself even, it depends now what the kind of specific green pepper you have, just to get it back to the hardness. And at this point, because if you look at the size, this is an interesting part, this is so much smaller than the general usually expected size of green peppers, and this is now, well, people have tried to regulate, or does it go from green to yellow to red, or does it go from green to red to yellow? That's not really for anybody to decide. Each one and every specific one is different. So why I'm mentioning the ventilation and such is because even when you notice the little speckles and stuff that happen on it, when it starts technically deflating is a good word to use, those kind of applications would be nice. You can either immerse it in something for a period of time, take it out, let it dry, and the drying part would be a nice application of the electrolysis. But the interesting thing is it's not really drying in the electrolysis. It's kind of would be hardening, but that would depend on the kind of ventilation, distillation application that you would be using. This is literally what I just checked out now. So it's just 10 minutes of just talking about green peppers, but honestly, that's something I really understand. This one's really, really hard. Like, you can actually hear it. This one is kind of soft. Acoustically, you can actually check. And that one a lot softer, even when you just look at it like visually. Some of the spots here are actually pretty soft, but like I said, each and every one is different. So the redding part is still pretty much hard, just as a lot of the green parts. This one's actually pretty hard there still. A little bit softer here. So yeah. And some people had discovered that usually in the yellow stage, kind of depends. The tree itself as well, the plant itself, in its season, which will be hardest. The yellow stage or the green stage or the red stage. The brown stage now is what I was actually getting to. Literally at that point is when I noticed about the speckles, and literally just the onions being here next to, I was like, wow, okay, so the onion peels have browned that quickly. And I also took those out, but people generally know just the general basics of, okay, well, if your fridge goes out for more than 72 hours, if you just take the onions out, they'll be fine for even the next 7 days. That's a general knowledge thing, but this one is not really expected to brown in less than 24 hours or 24 hours in terms of the outermost shell. which is what I noticed. It's literally that kind of application that would be pretty interesting when you are able to deal with situations like that. It's not supposed to sound weird that you want to electrolyze a green pepper. Well, understanding that much just from knowing you can get energy from a potato, which has lithium in it, which is used in lithium-ion batteries, should make sense for people. These are things that we've known since third grade even before third grade. While I was still in Botswana, 1990s is quite a, time frame for some people. The thing is not having time to actually do things like that or understand them, or even having the actual apparatus, which is interesting when my parents would complain about these really old thrown away house antennas. And it's weird that they would complain because you're breaking them and you're noting, wow, okay, this one is an alloy, this one is not an alloy, this one is, okay, this is the new rollout of that time that was thrown out, and have you noticed that bit of it, etc. They actually had no idea, didn't even care. It was just about the amount of money they paid for them, which is very cheap at that point in time, to be quite honest. Even right now, it would be quite interesting for people to understand people putting hangers on their televisions and getting reception there. So it was really interesting to put all that together. The thoughts that were behind actually just seeing that, about the electrolysis of a green pepper. Seriously, you literally need to inject, electrolyze, ventilate. The cooling and heating, I think for that specific case of the phase of where it is, would more be an open air. Depending now if you're going to refrigerate it, like refrigerate it, literally. Or just eat it afterwards straight. That's the thing. People finding that useless, or finding that, it's time consuming. Would you wait that long for it? It's like, well, if you've ever quote unquote taken a botany class and seen how long it takes for somebody to actually understand or study one little part about just corn, and how we have red corn, black corn, the more yellowish, of which there are a number of shades of the yellow corn. And the sweet corn that people say sweet corn, is like, okay, well, that seems a very yellow corn, but there are also very yellow corns that are not as sweet. Is the understanding that people will at least have about the food that they eat and the things that God has created. This part is the interesting part about 1 Timothy 4, understanding how good God's creation is. Just seeing that. I don't have the electrolysis equipment. I don't have any of the ventilation, distillation things. But just understanding that part is very, very interesting. That so many would overlook it, find it useless, and only for the sakes of the fallenness of the Babylonian system of time giving and receiving, to receiving and giving. Well, this is 2024, October, the first day of it. So, it's quite a lot of, not even just memories gone through. And while I was just apologizing for the kitchen state and whatnot, literally I'd been doing a lot of the cleaning up of, and what I've noticed about grime removal, man, just hot water. And we'd always discovered this, myself and my mom, Helen Murapa, which was like, wow, if you do run out of dishwashing liquid, it doesn't really matter how grimy things are. If you actually know how to apply it, just boiling hot water will literally do the trick. It might take you some time, and it could be 24 to 48 hours. Yes, you'll still be able to, with 1 or 2 or 3 of the things that you need to cook for the days that are ongoing, but literally be able to do it. And understanding detergents and degreasers and what they actually are. They are very complex alcohols in a way that they're also citric acid, they're compound sugaries, and some of them, it depends on the time frame and the way that you're using them. With the hot water part, like literally, everybody has noticed that much. Like you can leave a sink with things quote unquote dirty for like 4 or 5 days, or even to a week, or past a week, as some kids would order like pizzas and things like that. Oh, the parents have gone on vacation for like 2 weeks, and then nobody's doing the dishes because people are either playing PlayStation too much, or they're watching movies and stuff like that. Then realize, oh my gosh, they're coming back in like 48 hours, and then people realizing that sort of thing. Weirdly, it having to be a situation like that to see that sort of thing. Some people not even having noticed. Them just finding it an opportunity to be naughty, if you will. But the point being, that kind of understanding, and at least having taken note and remembrance even through all the nonsense that would have been going on. I'm 37 now. That kind of understanding would have come from the age of about 4, 5, 6 on, going to 8 and into 12 and 13. By then, I'm telling you, doing the dishes was just now not even just tedious, because you're thinking about your homework and how kind of base, quote unquote, it is compared to your experience with, like I said, the little motors and the winding of coils, and seeing how that's developing as you quote unquote get new devices, and how batteries, well, battery companies are fighting. There's now Duracell, there's an Energizer, and now in Zim there's Intercell or something. Sorry, I'm not even going to say Intercell. That's Power Cell. It's just interesting because of the Energizer Power Cell dispute in Zim, which was more or less franchised of Energizer because they did not keep up with the logo or the outward design standard of the black half and the gray half of the battery looking that way, and the way it was designed was just a black coating that said Energizer, which means anybody technically could make it. It's one of those open sourcing issues that some people may not understand, but yeah, definitely had to share that. And it was interesting finding out that they used lead ionizings, which didn't really involve too much lithium. It seemed as if some people were trying to avoid the lithium dispute, but it was for other reasons that had nothing to do with battery manufacturing. And when people would use them, if you notice the times you had your radio, whatever appliance it was, even if it was a little Game Boy device or whatever, even a remote control, chewing the battery after it looked like or seemed like, quote unquote, the juice was finished, would literally make it last for at least another 7 days, compared to the time frame that was generally known for batteries to last, which sadly was not even recorded in a very accurate way at all. I'm serious, no, it really wasn't at all. It really, really, really wasn't. Generally, well, there's too many factors at that point in time to keep up with because of manufacturing, transport, wholesale, and retail, and things like that. But, that's the thing. Just because of that Babylonian fallenness, when people don't consider how unhappy God is with that, and as if he doesn't care. Yes, he wants us to get on with our everyday lives. But just noticing that there about the green pepper, wow. Now, some other people would have been worried what they were going to do about green peppers in the next 24 hours, or if they needed them and things like that. Wow, it would really hurt a lot of hearts, but they would be worrying for nothing. Now, understanding that part, like saying is, yes, I don't have the electrolysis or the ventilation, distillation process to be able to do something like that, to re-harden. And maybe if it's that's an experiential now. It would have been a first experiential to see, okay, would it continue growing larger? What is it actually lacking, the specific green pepper of it, and etc. These are actually very, very important experiences in life. So yeah, 1 Timothy 4 Expo for the Partakers 3 and Revelation 18 snapback to some degree. But yeah, still ongoing, a bunch of the technique exposing life story stuff. So I'm going to just keep that short, and that's 20 minutes, but it is that important. Onions would be another thing to talk about, but onion-powered things, some people may not understand, but they are called bulbs for a reason. Why we're mentioning lemon and the two sides of the lemons, the base and the actual where it comes from, the stem, being the very specifically noted points for the kind of distillation, electrolysis that was used to make little LED lights light up. And that should have not been a secret at all, knowing that tungsten is very general at that point in time when people would actually present that to children. Like, wow. So other things now, in terms of the post about Mexican jumping beans, and understanding that much about how plants and animals, quote unquote, cross, that the actual seed of the moth is inside the bean of the tree and such like that. Some people would ask about cicada bugs and jacarandas. Some people going to certain places where there are jacarandas and no cicada bugs, wondering how are the jacarandas surviving with no cicada bugs? Or some people going to the places with the jacarandas and cicada bugs, wondering why aren't the jacarandas and the cicadas together? Why are the cicadas on something else? And then other people actually say, okay, why are the jacarandas and cicada bugs, the ones that do the little raspy, very loud rattling and such? What can I say? The third one now being not blending, or as if they're making the jacarandas, quote unquote, span of purpleness, because they've always been known for having a specific and special time of season for them to actually bear flower. The fruit and seed part of it now, some people would kind of reject, would be collected, but then the reasoning sometimes very void for people's understanding. Did notice that myself, but other people at times, in terms of the manner of how that was done, seemed as if it was like cleaning up the street, or as if the street was messy because those were on the street. Well, people passing would notice and be able to pick up the seeds and then at least look at them. I remember at least chewing one of them, and I was like, wow, you know, the way people love peanuts and peanut powered things, and how peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from peanuts being used as peanut butter is another long story to talk about. So yeah, 20 minutes of understanding that much is quite a thing. So peace, y'all. Catch y'all on the next video.
And that's peace for the record. I'm making up nothing cause it is every second. Truth you might find in the message. Search is defined till you find in the lesson. Learn, and that's peace for the record. Classroom closed, eyes open, butt naked. Fresh, new view for the pupil. Workloads gotta stay fruitful, usual. And that's peace for the record. Peace for the record.